The world runs on borrowed money. Every country, from the richest to the poorest, owes someone, but few ever ask who exactly they owe. Behind the staggering $300 trillion global debt lies a web of power, profit, and quiet control that determines the fate of nations. From central banks to hidden private creditors, this invisible empire shapes everything: your job, your home, even the price of your food. Are you ready to uncover who really owns the world's debt and how it silently dictates the global balance of power? Before we dive deeper, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because what you're about to discover might change how you see the world's economy forever. Stay until the end. The truth may surprise you. Money at its core is trust, but debt, that's the shadow twin of money. Every dollar, every euro, every yen that exists today is someone else's liability. The story of global debt begins not with modern nations, but centuries ago, in the quiet halls of European banks, where kings borrowed gold to wage wars. Those loans built empires, toppled nations, and planted the seed for a system we still live under today. When the Bretton Woods Agreement was signed in 1944, it formalized the global financial order. The U.S. dollar became the world's reserve currency, and global trade began revolving around it, but also quietly tied the world economies to a single axis: the American financial system. The U.S. Federal Reserve, alongside other central banks like the ECB, the Bank of Japan, and the Bank of England, became the world's debt engines. They printed money through quantitative easing, buying government bonds, and injecting liquidity into the global system. Debt was no longer a burden. It became the fuel of economic growth. Corporations borrowed to expand. Governments borrowed to build. Consumers borrowed to live. And the cycle continued, faster and deeper. By 2024, the world's debt reached over $300 trillion, 3 times the size of the global economy. Nations like Japan, the U.S., and China held massive internal debts, while developing countries struggled under foreign creditors. But behind these numbers lies a question few dare to ask: who benefits? Because for every debtor, there must be a creditor. And those creditors, unseen and unvoted, have the power to reshape economies overnight. Visual prompt: a globe entangled in chains of money and bonds, with shadowy hands holding it from above, symbolizing control over world debt. When you hear national debt, you probably imagine countries owing each other, like the U.S. owing China or Europe owing the IMF. But the truth is far more complex. Most of the world's debt is actually owned by private entities, investment funds, pension institutions, banks, and even the ultra-wealthy elite. Take the U.S., for example. As of today, only about 20% of U.S. debt is held by foreign governments. The rest, nearly 80%, is owned by domestic investors, financial institutions, and the Federal Reserve itself. That means the government borrows money largely from its own citizens and corporations, paying interest that cycles back into the financial class. Globally, the picture is similar. The world's top holders of sovereign and corporate debt are not governments, but asset management giants like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and Fidelity. These firms collectively manage over $30 trillion in assets, equivalent to the GDP of the United States. They hold bonds from every major country, making them silent stakeholders in nearly every government decision. Then there's a shadow banking system. Trillions of dollars in unregulated debt derivatives and synthetic instruments traded in secrecy. Hedge funds, private equity firms, and offshore entities control vast amounts of global credit, often operating beyond the reach of any central authority. In other words, global debt isn't just an economic tool. It's a control mechanism. By owning the debt, these institutions indirectly influence policy, interest rates, and even elections. When a nation defaults, they dictate the terms of recovery. When a currency collapses, they profit from the volatility. So while governments appear to be the borrowers, the true power rests with those who lend, and those who could decide who gets to borrow next. Visual prompt: silhouettes of corporate skyscrapers forming the shape of a dollar sign over a map of the world, with glowing lines showing debt connections between countries. The world can't sustain endless borrowing forever. As interest rates rise and currencies weaken, nations are finding it harder to keep up with payments. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, warns that more than half of low-income countries are at high risk of debt distress. Even major economies are feeling the strain. The U.S. spends nearly $1 trillion a year just on interest payments. So what happens when the world's debt bubble finally bursts? Some economists predict a global debt reset, a coordinated restructuring of financial systems, possibly tied to digital currencies like CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Others believe we'll see selective collapses, nations defaulting one by one, triggering chain reactions through global markets. Then there's the most controversial theory, that debt has become a deliberate instrument of control. By keeping nations perpetually indebted, powerful financial entities can dictate global policies, steer resources, and maintain influence without firing a single shot. But amid all this, opportunities also emerge. New economic models, from blockchain-based finance to resource-backed currencies, are challenging the old debt hierarchy. Countries are exploring alternatives to the dollar, and individuals are learning how to protect their wealth in decentralized systems. The question remains, will humanity free itself from this endless debt cycle or sink deeper into it? One thing is certain, the story of global debt is far from over, and those who understand it will shape the world that comes next. Visual prompt: a cracked globe with digital currency symbols glowing from within, symbolizing a coming financial reset or transformation. The truth about global debt is more than just numbers. It's the story of power, dependency, and control. Stay tuned, because in our next investigation, we'll go even deeper into how debt shapes your daily life, from the food you buy to the freedom you think you have. Subscribe, stay curious, and don't miss what's coming next, only on this channel.